it gives me great pleasure to welcome Mia Reay. Mia is the founder of her eponymous wallpaper house, a studio that has quickly earned recognition for bringing bold storytelling and eccentric Englishness to interiors. What began with single hand-painting designs for her own home has grown into collections now represented in showrooms across the world and embraced by leading designers. Mia's work is rooted in timelessness. From Islamic ceramics to Swedish palaces and Indian panels, each pattern creates a narrative that resists trends and insists on beauty that lasts. We'll be talking about her journey, her philosophy of design, and what luxury means when it lives on the walls around us. Mia, welcome to What the Lux.
Thank you so much.
Now, this is a personal one for me because I should disclose, Mia, of course we are brother and sister-in-law. And the first question I have is, it's not easy being married to Mackay, is it?
No, it's not. No, it's not. But at the same time, when you called me, I couldn't say no. So here I am, and I'm delighted.
It's true. You're under duress. And I of course, fully take back that comment. Mia, it's totally incredible to see from reasonably up close what you've created. I'd love to understand the journey of how this actually came about. I think people would be interested to hear that. But firstly, there's another interesting thing is that you started a business after having children in your 40s, which I think is a great standard bearer for people who think it's never too late. You know, this thought that you always have to start a business in your early or late 20s.
I think 40s is the new 20s, right?
I agree.
Mine was very much a passion project. In fact, I wanted to do fine art at university, and I got into Cambridge, and my parents said, "You're not going to do fine art, you're going to Cambridge." So off I went.
Yes.
And I actually had a great time, but I ended up in a slightly different trajectory, which was more the accounting and the venture capital side of things, which was never what I aimed to do, but it just sort of happened. So I came back to my art. I mean, I never stopped painting, but I came back to my art in my 40s. And it was rather wonderful because it sort of happened as a complete passion project. So it wasn't intentional, and it wasn't a great plan to start this company, but it just organically sort of processed.
So what happened? How did you make? It's one thing, I think a lot of people think about this stuff. It's one thing making that jump to doing it.
I was sitting in a room, which you know very well, the library up in Lancashire, and it had been specialist painted beautifully, probably in the 60s, and by someone who definitely had more than just Coca-Cola, because it was beautifully painted, but the colour... I hope no one involved is listening to this, but the colour was slightly more like diarrhea colour, and I couldn't... and I sat there for years thinking, what am I going to do with this room? Because it's a beautiful room.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't find any wallpaper I liked, and I wanted some colour in there. And then I thought, well, hang on a minute, how difficult can it be to make wallpaper? It's sort of almost like Nike, just do it.
Yeah.
And so I set up sort of my little mission, and I'm sort of slightly obsessive about things generally. And I set up just finding out everything about wallpaper making. And that's how everything started. So I made my own wallpaper for that library. And I contacted this wonderful man called Graham Carr.
Yes.
Who had been retired for a while, but I called him, and I'd known him before, and he's the greatest living furniture painter in England, in my opinion. And I just said, Graham, do you mind, everything about furniture painting and pattern repetition and everything else, would you mind just doing a bit of painting with me? He said yes. And since we've started painting together, he's actually become one of these Instagram influencers.
Thanks to you.
No, I don't think it's even thanks to me. I think it's thanks to himself. But it's sort of, I've been left behind. He's gone off with his sort of 6-figure following. It's great.
But it's not. It would appear a simple product, wallpaper. It's really not. We've had fans of the podcast will remember the episode with Tim and Lizzie from Fromental. And yes. How intricate. And there's different ways of producing wallpaper. There's different ways of drawing and designing. Can you just talk us through your process?
Sure. So I think my process, I sort of slightly live in my own little bubble. So I don't follow anybody else. And I probably do things the complicated way, and I probably don't do them the way that normally people do. But the way it's done is we literally have an inspiration and we go back, and I think Graham and I send each other at least 20 WhatsApps a day.
Oh, really?
And he taught me this great thing, which is that just look at everything in detail. Don't just look at things properly. And I think that so often we don't. And so we have so many ideas. I have them sort of coming out of my ears, and he's great because I have an idea and he'll say, Mia, that's just absolutely dreadful. and I know that I'll get the honest answer. So it's really great if you're doing a creative process to have another person.
Yes.
Because otherwise you can go to bed and you can paint something. I mean, I have moments where I've painted something and I go to bed and I think, gosh, I'm a genius. And then I wake up the next morning and go, oh my goodness, that is like the worst thing that anyone's ever done in this planet. So it's really nice to have that sort of feedback when you're doing something that's slightly abstract and creative. So we go back and forth and we come up with lots of ideas and then we paint them. And sometimes...
And this is on what? Using what?
On literally using oils or acrylics or, anything similar. Sometimes it's sort of wall paint to space, whatever it is. But they are done on proper panels, like real pieces of art. So there is no computers involved in this at all. It's literally done in a very old-fashioned way, as if they would be drawn straight onto a wall.
Everything you buy from Mia Reay wallpaper would be
originally hand-painted.
Hand-painted. And what's the process for manufacturing at
So then
scale?
I put my hoodie on and I head to the little streets of North London with my scrolls and rolls. And I go to this wonderful scanning place where they scan a lot of the pieces from museums, art pieces from museums and things. And I have them scanned there. And then they get sent to the factory who separate them. Every colour is separated, but this is done digitally because, the block printing and screen printing, they're wonderful. But because my original panels are hand painted, you couldn't repeat what's been painted by block printing or screen printing because you would lose the intricacies of the hand paintedness. So we literally print them so that every colour is done separately. I go to the factory that I print at and I go and mix the colours there and I sit there until everything is printed and okayed. So literally every bit of the journey. Yeah. I have my hands.
As ever seen.
On. Yes.
I'd love to talk about your creative inspiration. It's what you do, it's so you and yet very, very hard, I think, to define. And there's a great quote here which you say, if I see a trend, I do the opposite, modern or traditional. If something is beautiful, it'll always be beautiful. This is my motto. And I think you see that. You've got the Utopia sort of Mad Parrot collection and so many other things that are wildly different. And yet it does sort of have this unifying theme. But talk about your creative style and inspiration.
So my creative style, style is not random, but the inspiration is very random because it can come from anywhere and everywhere. And but I think the unifying thing is definitely that if I take a picture of a room, I want it to look good in 100 years' time. Because I think any design, whether it's modern or old or, however one wants to define it, if it's good design, it's got to be there to stay, right? So, modern design becomes classics when it's good design and it's there to stay and it doesn't date. And trends, come and go, and that's great too when we need that. But what I'm after is the stuff that stays. But the inspiration, just some examples. So Graham used to work with John Fowler of Colfax and Fowler, and they did a lot of work together. And John gave Graham a little piece of fabric, and it was printed in 1780s. And it looks super modern, but it depicts the immensely valuable diamond necklace that Marie Antoinette was trying to procure herself just before she had her head chopped off, and so it was almost as a newspaper in those days, printed. And so we've got the original piece of fabric, and that's how the Queen's necklace. Wallpapers come about, and Alexander Dumas, obviously who wrote Three Musketeers, has written a book about it called The Queen's Necklace Affair. So it's a famous story, but it's rather wonderful having that original piece of fabric and then reproducing it. So it's quite nice to have. I don't look for stories when I eat, but the stories come with the inspiration, because if I see something, that something comes from somewhere normally, and it has a story behind it. The Drottningholm tree, for example, the King and Queen of Sweden have this wonderful palace in Stockholm called Drottningholm. And inside there's a theatre, and behind the theatre is a little room, which was the prima ballerina's room. And it still has these wonderful trees, which were painted, I think, in 1600s. And so I've just done my take on them without sort of so many birds and just simplified version. So there's another story that just came with the inspiration. But the idea is also, when you put my wallpaper on the walls, it really does look like the walls have been hand painted.
I'd agree with that.
You're very kind. But sadly, they are not, obviously hand painted, because I'd be a very busy woman otherwise.
We were talking about the person who buys your wallpaper. Who do you envisage, or who do you know buys your wallpaper?
Well, so we sell to trade. So we sell to interior designers.
Yeah.
So quite often I don't get to see the end result, because they get sent to sort of, Palm Beach or Atlanta or, Texas or whatever, to wonderful houses, but I don't get to see them unless they're photographed in a magazine.
I think, by the way, that would interest people. A lot of people would assume that it's the homeowner who's buying from you directly.
Yeah, no.
Why is it that you are selling all through interior designers?
There's a good industry, especially in the States. So most of my wallpapers are sold in America, and there's a great sort of set up industry where there's showrooms who represent brands, and they are for trade. So you can go via an interior designer who will then pick up things. And so it just sort of happened, because the way my business started is I was painting up in Lancashire, and there were those great floods a few years back, quite a few years back, and my studio got flooded. And so I rescued whatever I had and took them to a bathroom, and I laid everything I had left next to the bath and the loo. And of course, at that particular moment, I'd had a little mention in World of Interiors or House and Garden about one of the new wallpapers, and I get this wonderful phone call from Bunny Williams's office in America, and she's the great thing with interior design. So, and they said, would you have any samples? And I said, yes, of course I have samples, thinking, I mean, if you only saw me. And so I sort of very unprofessionally then sort of panicked and cut pieces of my rolls that I'd rescued from the floods and sent them to America. And this wonderful lady, her senior designer called Mallory, emailed me and said, do you have any representation in the States? And I thought, oh my goodness.
Of course I do.
Yes, quite
She'll
yet.
go through your Rolodex very quickly.
Exactly. And the next morning, it was the kindest thing ever, and I never forget it. She'd sent me an email saying, well, you should, and here are the people that you should contact. And that's how I got started in America. So she gave me some showrooms who represent, who trade showrooms. I called them, and the Americans are so wonderfully enthusiastic about sort of, they're wonderful to work with, because they are so enthusiastic about new talent, and they're very open and approachable. So I ended up in America in trade showrooms because of that.
Amazing.
So it really just happened.
Yeah. And now roughly, most of your sales come from the US.
Yeah.
It's amazing that.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that obviously if you're selling in the US, you are an English brand. You're Finnish. Born Finnish. So do you think people are buying into a version of Englishness? And do you think as a Finn, albeit a huge international one, you have a take on Englishness that's interesting?
I'm definitely a mixture of culture, mix of cultures.
Yeah.
I left Finland when I was 9, I think. So, but we go back every year, so it's definitely in me. But yes, I think I've been in this country long enough to sort of be quite English about Englishness, and
own quite an eccentric English design brand. Essentially,
little bit of wonky lampshades is always good.
Yeah.
I think definitely there's so much heritage and culture and history in Europe and England in particular when it comes to interior design or fabrics or wallpapers, that definitely people come, that look at England in terms of design, for sure.
But would someone in Palm Beach know that Mia Reay is an English brand?
I should hope so.
Yeah.
I've just sent the wonderful story. I just got an order from Palm Beach, and it said that all I could see is it said guest cloakroom. Yeah. And I thought, got to get together 2 rolls, and have to do all the effort at getting it over. And this little cloakroom was probably about 27 rolls of wallpaper, it's like an enormous ballroom in England.
Yeah. Well, amazing.
So it's wonderful.
Yeah. But I think there's one thing I've noticed about the role that trade interior designers play in this industry is that it's actually vaguely terrifying. The bolder your design decision in your home, the more terrifying it is to make a decision, lest you be criticised or lest you think you got it wrong. And so you do need that help to push you over the line to choose something that's a bit different and brave.
And I think the longer you look at things, so I don't think I could have ever started what I did, accidentally start, if I would have been any younger, because it takes quite a long time for your eye to train itself. And,
yes.
I'm not saying people can't do it when they're younger. Of course they can. I couldn't have done it. It's taken me so long to really be sure about what I like and where I see my sort of creative side going and being. So I think it's really important to see lots of, I've been very lucky in my life that I've seen a lot of beautiful houses and a lot of beautiful interiors and a lot of beautiful art, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, you grow with it. And you understand a bit more. And I think that's really crucial and I've learned a lot from Graham, who's amazing with his knowledge. So I think we should all sort of learn as we go along, but I think it's definitely made me into what I am today.
And I suppose, unlike many who work do what you do, your previous career, you were very high up in retail. So the business side of it, I assume, comes naturally to you, or is it still quite a scary prospect dealing with the business side and how much you want to grow this business? It's phenomenally successful, but it's in your choice how big it becomes to an extent.
No, business side is the easy part because really? I was an accountant and, I don't actually talk about it so much. I'm not even sure I've told my accountant I'm an accountant. But anyway, so the business side of things, because I was an accountant and I was in, I worked for companies like Apex Partners, venture capital.
Yeah.
A long time ago, I got all the finance side from there. So that's sort of easy enough.
So you understand your gross margins?
I understand. I understand my account. And whether I choose to or not, that's another thing. But I understand them. And then marketing, I used to also do marketing. And so I used to head marketing for Selfridges, department stores, and I was in luxury goods before that. So I've got a bit of experience. It comes
quite easily compared to most, I assume.
Well, it's just that I happen to have experience in both sides, which is, quite odd to go from finance to luxury goods and marketing to wallpaper.
Yeah.
But it's sort of weirdly enough, it's only now that it all makes sense. I was always wondering what my career was, doing or where it was going. And I don't think I ever had a plan. Until now. Now it's great.
The pieces of the jigsaw have arrived.
It's taken a while, but it's come together.
Having got to where you've got to and this big footprint in America, what do you want to do? Is there a vision of success that's a business a lot bigger or doing other kinds of products, or do you want to keep it quite close to you?
Well, at the moment, I've still got our mini one at home. So that takes a little bit of time. Obviously dealing with that. So I have whatever free time I have and that I spend on the company. But for me, the most important thing is that whatever I do it perfectly.
Right.
So I would never want to expand so much that it took away from the quality of what I'm doing. But I am. I remember when I started, your brother-in-law said to me, darling, before you get to the second collection, do you think you could just sell one roll? So I sold my roll and carried on. But no. So I am doing a whole lot of other things on the side, which I'm starting to print some fabrics.
Yes.
But the whole thing is that everything has to be made in England. So it's very much, it's got to be Great Britain, and as long as I can keep it here, that's what I'll do. So I'm starting to print some fabrics, and I'm looking into doing I am sort of doing a lampshade collection at the moment.
Brilliant.
And I'm also attacking the unsexiest bit of furniture that ever existed on this planet, the recliner chair.
Oh, but we love recliner chairs.
Yes,
who doesn't love them? They're just they're just very ugly.
People secretly say that, but I think anyone in interior design, they wouldn't necessarily have one in a room. So I'm having one handmade in England, and we're working on it with everything handmade, hardwood, local blacksmiths, whatever else. That will look like a nice armchair, but has the little function of leaning back a little.
Oh, fantastic! So you are moving into these other things.
I'm moving into these other things, but mainly because I don't, there is no sort of, if with my finance hat on, I always think, my goodness, if a management consultant looked at my company and they would say, where's your strategy?
Yeah.
They would laugh, because my strategy, I've got it sorted in my head, but it doesn't make any sense to anybody else. But I...
Well, the trouble is the made in Britain thing makes zero sense financially, but long term, it makes a huge amount of sense, not least because it's important and, these industries and crafts have to be preserved. But secondly, you can actually charge the price premium and it becomes a brand differentiator than another importing. A lot of people sort of assemble in Britain.
Yeah,
and,
mine is
they pull a fast one because, of course, it's coming in from the Far East,
fully
which is
made.
fine.
And also it just means that the quality control is really easy because it's all done locally. I go to these factories. I visit them regularly. If I print anything or if I make anything, I'm there in person. And so yes, it does make sense. And it's wonderful preserving all these great places that have existed for hundreds of years. And also I'm quite lucky where I am up north, because that's where all the Britain got its wealth in sort of printing cottons and linens and having all these wonderful factories around.
Yeah, and it's still, I suppose people don't know much about it, but there are still these pockets of industry that are very much alive and thriving in some cases, or needing a bit of support in others, I suppose.
Yes, but it's it's wonderful, wonderful to support that.
Yeah. Who in the sort of wider interiors and design industries do you really, really admire and think is doing great stuff?
Oh gosh, a lot of people. I admire a lot of people, and I never feel that there's not enough space for a lot of creatives to be together. So I'm sort of very inclusive about it, and I have a lot of good friends in the industry too. Yeah. So, Nina Campbell was great help when I started out, and all my showrooms have been wonderful, supporting me. There's also, obviously any company in England who supports the crafts and, smaller companies who make things in England or, anywhere else locally. That's always good.
Yeah.
There's some wonderful old designers who are not around anymore who are also people I admire. Yeah, so I'm always really happy to sort of tell people that they do amazing things and sort of talk to them.
It's a good industry like that, isn't it? Because I think everyone's very mutually supportive, even though notionally you might the margins compete. But
no, 100%. And we've had some great laughs with people, and I've worked with people, I've travelled with people who, should be my competitors, but actually I never think that. No,
and I don't think they think like that.
No, I don't think they do at all. So it's great.
Yeah. And we always on this podcast, obviously we're a business that works in luxury in inverted commas. Definition of that is vastly different depending on who you speak to. For you, why is what you produce a luxury?
Luxury, I think, for me, is always time spent on things, because time is luxury, sort of. So it's not so much about the price, because price should always reflect how much time or, obviously cost of things, but price can be set at whatever, but it's the time that it takes to design or hand make things or, just oversee things. Obviously, it's the quality of the base things that you're using too. So if you're using proper hardwood, or if you're using good quality paper and inks and all the rest of it. So it's all of that put together. But I think it's definitely the time to be creative and the time that you take on making particular things. That creates luxury and things that last.
I know. I'm so struck by your kind of passion that this should be around in 100 years' time, which is essentially the opposite of any kind of volume retail business, isn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly. I never thought of it that way.
You really want it to be there in 100 years' time, and that would make you proud from wherever you are. It
probably doesn't make me a very good saleswoman, though.
Well, I think it does.
Really?
Yeah, it's a unique take on it, but yes. And it's interesting. But are you finding people biting in any other countries that are unexpected or regions?
Do you know what? It's actually it's quite fascinating, because people always say, "Oh, what's the best-selling wallpaper out of your collection?"
Yes,
and I always say, "Well, there isn't," because even America is very different. I get different orders from Texas to Chicago to, Washington DC to New York to Palm Beach, whatever, and they all have their slight different takes, or maybe somewhere where it's a bit sunnier, the colours are a bit brighter, and then I get orders from Scandinavia and Nordics, and I get orders from Italy and Spain, and I get orders from Europe too. So it just, and obviously I'm forgetting the most important thing, England, but it really does vary. So there isn't one that is the sort of most favorite, but it is really interesting to see how different areas look at different things.
Yes, because I imagine culturally, I imagine the Germans, for example, I don't know, I have no idea, but culturally their sort of attitude to wallpaper or how they use it is presumably really different from the Brits or from the Spanish, or
but then there's obviously little pockets in every country of people, whether they're sort of maximalist or minimalist or whatever you want to. I don't like putting definitions into anything because I think design is just design. So I don't think I don't want to call myself anything except maybe a bit eccentric.
Mia, thank you so much. That's an amazing run through what you do, and an incredible story of a business that's skyrocketed, and you should be very proud of what you've created, I think.
Oh, thank you, Fred, and thank you for asking me to be on your podcast.
No, it's a pleasure, but I'm afraid we do ask, I'm not sure if you're warned about this, the same 4 questions to everyone at the end of each podcast.
Oh,
the first one is always vague irritations in any industry. What would you most like to change about your industry?
At the moment, I think Trump's tariffs.
Right. That's affecting you.
It's affecting me, but I'm lucky because everything is made in England, so it's actually it's only 10%. But still, I mean, there are people who I know who produce wonderful things in India, and then they're faced with 50%. And it's just sort of because I defend the whole of the creative industry, wherever it might be. I think that sort of Indian hand block printers just as wonderful as anything else, just to give an example. But so that I just like supporting anything that's handcrafts.
Yeah, fair enough. What most concerns you about the world that we're leaving the next generation?
Gosh, this is deep.
I know.
Do you know what? I love people, and I love talking to people, and I worry about this. I have eternal arguments with my children about the use of screens. Yeah. And I sort of feel like when we're in a restaurant, for example, and the children are looking at the menu on their phone rather than sort of asking something from a lovely waitress or waiter who's standing right next to us. Yeah. And so I think that the human communication, I think that's what worries me most, that you do most of your communications by looking into a screen instead of talking to people.
Yeah, and it's remarkable how many people say that in response to the question. It used to be the environment, which is still on everyone's mind, of course. Yes. But in the last year and a half, it's almost universal that people say that.
Right. Yeah.
Extraordinary. Now, if you were not allowed to do what you do and you had to give it up, what would you do? You're not allowed to work in design or wallpaper.
Well, first thing that comes to mind is I think I'd like to hang out with my family a bit more, but I'm not sure how they'd take that. If I couldn't do my wallpaper, I would still. It would have to be something creative.
Yeah. Okay.
Or maybe I'd just sort of take on bridge full time.
No, I suspect the former. Lastly, what's the most exciting thing for you in the next 5 years that's on your mind?
I think, do you know what? I just think developing all these things that I was talking about, looking at different ways of using my creativity. So being able to use the patterns from the wallpapers and fabrics, or lampshades, or perhaps watching TV on the new recliner.
Yeah, I think it has to be the recliner. That is exciting.
I'm going to have to come and talk to you about that later. No, just carrying on what I'm doing and just using the and also what's wonderful is because of my work, I'm now sort of going to places in the States, for example, that I haven't necessarily gone to before, and not the obvious places.
So mid-America and places like that.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So I'm doing a lovely trip to see my showrooms in Texas and Chicago coming up, and all sorts of things. So I'm enjoying that too, seeing new places and meeting new people, and it's great fun.
Having a reason to go there. It's great, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Mia, thank you so much.
Thank you, Fred.